traveling to Iran since 1966. And very fortunately, I've been able to spend two very different periods of time in a village I call Aliabad near Shiraz. I was there conducting my PhD dissertation in 1978, 1979 for 18 months, and then I wasn't able to go back for 25 years. And then in 2003, I was able to go back, and since then, I've been able to spend 6.5 months in that same village doing more research. And because of that, not being there for 25 years, I just became so astounded by all of the many tremendous changes taking place in this village. It was a village of 3,000 people 30 years ago, much more self-contained and separate. Now it's really basically almost a suburb of Shiraz. It's 7,000 people. It's like a town. There's every kind of business, anything you need for construction, many shops. It's really become, in a way, much more a part of Shiraz. People go into Shiraz a lot more. They interact a great deal with people in Shiraz. They go there so much, and there's not kind of as much of a boundary between them and the city. Even the city's coming out towards the village, and the village is moving, so there's really hardly any gap between them.
You saw it before the revolution. How has it improved? I just talked to Azad, and she said there's a lot of improvement.
Oh yeah, absolutely, a lot of
revolution.
Improvement. There are so many more schools. There's a much higher standard of living. And girls have much more education. Of course, there's more education, you know, there's actually a decline in the strength of generational and gender hierarchies. And for this paper, I was talking about the changes in marriage, which I call marriage modifications, opportunities and challenges. And I found that the brides, the young couple, are gaining more power in relationship with the older people. I look at a number of cases, and I found that there are such opportunities as more emotional opportunities for more emotional intimacy with the husband. They're changing sexual practices, which are more egalitarian and yes, less controlled by others. There are opportunities to get to know the groom before the wedding, and efforts for brides to be independent from mothers-in-law are really quite successful. And to a large extent, there's a greater level of partnership and companion marriage, although things also present some challenges. But I talked about a number of areas and when there's tremendous change which influence marriage. And one is in residence. 30 years ago, the groom brought his wife into his parents' home, of course, in the courtyard, right there in the same area. They would get a room, and basically, to a large extent, the young wife is what she was, 9, 10, 12, 14, worked under the administration of her mother-in-law.
Okay, earlier they told us the average marriage age has jumped to 23.
Oh yeah, maybe probably not quite as high in the village, but there are examples of people who got married later. Even more recently, I think the woman was 32 and she got married. But you know, the older you get, the more problematic it is to marry with somebody in the village. In this case, you know, none of the other village boys, they wouldn't have married her, but she was fortunate that where she was working, there happened to be a young man from tribal background, and so she was able to marry him and have children. So she had her career and she had her education, and she put off marriage for some time, but finally, but of course at the cost of marrying someone who others thought, you know, was kind of lacking in status. But now girls won't marry until they have a separate house with all the household things necessary. Still, the parents do hope the sons will come and live with them, and one family built a two-story, very elegant two-story home, but the bride-to-be wouldn't come into that house, and they had to get a separate place for her, and this caused a lot of problems. It causes a lot of fights between people, and so, you know, much more so the brides and their family have more power, and the father of the groom basically kind of has to go along because he must get a son for his wife, and the wife won't marry until she has a separate home. So these are some problematic issues.
Well, what did you conclude in your paper?
Oh, and what will I conclude in my paper? Well, I found that there's so many different changes.
Is it for the better?
Well, for the younger couple, it's better. I think it's better in general. It's better. For the older people, of course, it's not better. And one of the problems is that, the children moved out when they got married, and then the wife, the old mother who's left a widow, very often just stays there in the old home, and the old home gets more wrecked. And now the resources of a couple, the couple wants to use them for their own resources. Children are so expensive to raise. Expectations for clothes, for housing, everything's so high. And very often the younger couple really don't help the mother at all. So there are a lot of problems connected with this. But I found that in many ways the brides, young women, take advantage of these new opportunities to negotiate for more power. Even within the marriage relationship, they're more able to talk and to discuss and to negotiate and to find ways to talk about things with their husband, and much more expectation of getting along. Of course, expectations also bring disappointments. So I think for the young women, it is an advantage in some ways. They get more power in the relationship and also with the parents-in-law. So, but for the mothers-in-law, it's not good at all.
Do you plan to go back?
Well, I want to, of course. I was there last summer in 2008. Whenever I get the opportunity.
So, what is the best quality of Iranians? And what's the worst?
They're so fascinating. They're so fascinating. The whole Iranian, scene is just so absolutely fascinating and gripping. And I really, really like Iranian culture, and I like Iranian people. Some of my best friends in the United States are Iranians, just because of their personality and their character. And they treat me so nice when I go to the village.
Are you fluent in Persian? You can say a few things in Persian towards the end?
خب دیگه من روم سیاه میشه از بس که زبانم بد شده و غلط زیاد میگم و
سپاسگزارم.